So I think what we'll do is we'll go through the PowerPoint quickly, and then the end of the PowerPoint really is some various examples, and so we'll use Robert as the example, and we'll kind of talk through specifically what kinds of things we can do to help him out. So this is a talk about communication, so all the different various forms of communication and how we can figure out what we need to work on and then decide how to do that with each individual student. So the big question is, of course, what are the different ways that we can communicate, and why do we choose to communicate in any particular way? And then how can we improve that communication? Everybody has some way of letting us know what they want. Some are more functional than others. So why do we use some of those less functional forms of communication at times, as opposed to using something that is more appropriate? Of course, communication is words, it's letters, it's emailing, it's texting, it's face-to-face, it's phone calls. These days we can communicate 24/7 with whoever we want to in any variety of forms, and it all counts and it all kind of serves the same purpose, and obviously some forms are more useful at some times than others. If you want to tell somebody something really quickly, often a text message is a more efficient way to do it. Because if you pick up the phone, you may end up in a long conversation. But if you're trying to have a conversation with lots of details, it's quicker to pick up the phone and call. And or if you're driving and shouldn't be texting and you have your hands free, then you call somebody instead. Sending emails you can do at any point in time, so that's helpful in that case. It's the same thing with our children and our students. They're going to choose to communicate in various ways for various reasons, and so we have to kind of figure all those out in all the different situations and be able to build that repertoire. Body language is big, and so a lot of times we are communicating with our body language, and sometimes the kiddos can interpret that, and sometimes they may not be picking up cues that we think they would be picking up, or sometimes they're picking up cues that we hope they wouldn't. Sometimes we don't have to say, I'm getting really frustrated, because they can tell. And we want to be aware of that too, and be thinking about all the things that we're communicating to them, as well as what they're communicating to us. Because that obviously plays a part in their behavior. Lots of kids like it when we get frustrated. They think it's fun. And so if our body language is telling them that they've pushed our buttons, that may reinforce a behavior that we don't want to reinforce. There's lots of different gestures, and again, sometimes kids on the spectrum may or may not be aware of those things that generally people know as having significance, thumbs up or thumbs down or fist pumps and those kinds of things. So sometimes we do have to teach them specifically. I do believe actually Robert is well acquainted with the fist pump at this point, and he knows what that's about. I believe that's something that he and Kate do together when he's done a good job. And I believe it makes him smile. So there's also, obviously with some kids, there are devices and tools we can use to help them communicate if they're not able to use verbal words. There's sign language, there's high-tech communication devices like using the iPad with programs on it to help speak a voice for you. And there's lower-tech versions like the PEC system of pictures, which helps kids to be able to tell us what they want. Sometimes we use these methods in addition to trying to prompt language. And there's lots of research actually on PECs in particular that says it actually helps promote verbal language because it gives them some visual supports and helps them keep going with that. So it's important obviously to be taking a look at all of the different options as we're trying to teach a child to communicate. We want to give them as many options as possible so that they can be successful quickly and come to value communicating appropriately. We don't want them to be frustrated with not being understood, so we want to be able to give them as many tools as possible. And when we don't have appropriate tools for them, or we haven't figured out exactly what we need to teach them yet, or they haven't learned those new skills yet, they communicate with challenging behaviors. They let us know they don't want to go somewhere by flapping on the ground. They let us know they don't like something by screaming and crying. They let their siblings and peers know that they want that toy by grabbing it or hitting or things like that, because they don't have another form yet for how to express those feelings. So that's our task, is to figure out how to teach them to communicate all of the things that are going on in a more appropriate way so that they can get reactions that are positive. When these behaviors work, they keep going. If flapping gets you to not have to go to the store after all, then you're gonna keep doing it. If crying gets you that juice box on top of the counter, you're gonna keep doing it. So we wanna make sure that as soon as we can, we give them those appropriate tools to be able to let us know, and then we can honor it as quickly as possible. So I've kind of already said all of this. The reason why a person communicates the way they do in any given situation could be a variety of things. Often they're just going to choose the easiest way they can. They're going to choose the most effective and efficient way that they can. If it works faster and more consistently to scream and cry, there's no reason to try anything else. And sometimes, really, it's just because they don't have anything else in their arsenal. It may be that they're learning it's not very effective and it's not very efficient to scream and cry to get what you want. It tires them out and they don't get what they want. But until we give them something else, that's going to keep going because they don't have anything to replace it with. So, how do we improve communication for the kids that we're working with, for the children at home, for our significant others, whatever the case may be? Communication is often something that needs to be worked on. And the first step is taking a look at what it looks like now. How do these people get their needs met? So in Robert's case, right now, he generally is using words and phrases at this point, right?
Yeah, in home, like he usually say one word.
Okay.
And I say, I want the whole sentence.
Mm-hmm.
And then wait. If I don't see any response from him, so I say, like, Mom, I want supper. Say, come on, Robert.
Mm-hmm.
So you can say that.
Yep. And so this is Robert sort of proving my point that he's going to go with the easiest thing he can get away with that is going to be effective. When I first met Robert, he had a PECS book, and apparently he was pretty good at using it, but I didn't know that. And so he grabbed his book and he gave me one picture, and I knew what he meant, and I couldn't actually honor it at that point. And so he grabbed the picture and put it on a sentence strip and handed it to me, which he was capable of doing because it hadn't been effective. Unfortunately, in that instance, it was something that wasn't available. So I couldn't honor his very appropriate communication. But point is, he kind of kept going until he got what he was looking for. And so it's the perfect strategy to keep pushing until they're to that point where their skills are at a maximum. Otherwise, they're gonna stick with the easy stuff. But we also want to be sure to go slowly, because if he's still at that stage where he's not making a lot of verbal words that make sense, he's just going to get frustrated and he's going to stop trying. He's going to stop valuing appropriate communication. He's going to go back to screaming and crying or whatever worked before that. So the key is we want to work with them where they are now and slowly and systematically build up so that we're requiring more, just like you're doing. Now we know he can put sentences together.
In the morning, sometimes he will start like talk, but there's no sense like. And then he looks at me, and I don't say anything, and he does like so. And he talks to, like, I say, come on.
He wants you to talk.
Come on, you want me to say it, but I have to say the same word that he's saying, but it's like.
But it's hard to figure out.
No sense.
Well, that's good news, because he knows that saying more words is a functional thing to do, and it's a social thing to do, and he wants to do it with you. That's great. So now we just have to slowly build his vocabulary, figure out what it is he might be trying to say, give him some words and some phrases he can say in that situation, so that he can get what he's looking for without without grabbing your face, and so that you can understand him. Because the downside to communicating is that it's not an isolated thing. It requires participation from somebody else. And if you're trying your hardest to communicate, but they don't know what you're saying, you're not going to get that positive reinforcement and that positive interaction back. And so you're less likely to keep trying again in the future. So we want to make sure we're always reinforcing the attempts and building those skills, and that everybody's on the same page, so that Mr. Robert can't get away with saying one word with some people, even though he can say a full sentence. We want to make sure that everybody at school and everybody at home is requiring the same things, so that he actually practices those skills and speaks to the extent that he can, or communicates in another way for a child who's not verbal at all. You know, uses that textbook with a whole sentence, or with those descriptive words in, or navigates their communication device for different reasons, or whatever the case may be. We want to be able to keep going with that. And you already kind of touched base on all of the things on this slide. Good job, Roseanne. So he's communicating for, in Robert's case, a lot of reasons. He's communicating for that social interaction, which is great. He's not just communicating when he wants something. He wants to like engage.
Yeah, like in the morning, I memorize some stuff that he says to me. He look at me and say, "Sakushe, I may kind of say." I said, "What is that, Robert?" When I say good morning, say good morning. Good morning, Robert. And then he says good morning.
Right, and so we want to just keep building with that, but we want to think about what his purpose is. And really, it sounds like in that case, he just wants to chat. He just wants to have a moment with mom. And so we want to think about what we're teaching him. And so good morning is perfect. How are you this morning? Hi, mom. You know, giving him things that will meet that purpose. And then...
Oh, can I just interrupt?
Sure.
If it is maybe kind of a perseverative talk that he likes to, would you sort of dissuade that, or?
We want it, right, we want it to be functional. So at this point, it's not functional, because he's saying a whole bunch of words or sounds and you're not sure what it's about. So that's what you're doing right now, is trying to replace that with actual words and phrases that would be appropriate in that situation. We want to encourage him to talk, but we want to replace something that isn't going to get a response from even you, knowing him well. It can't be understood, and we want to show him that if he's saying these phrases, he can be understood, and he's going to get a more consistent and positive response, as opposed to you going, what? I don't know.
He said those no-tech stuff, and then he wants me to like to repeat it back to him, like he done that to me.
So he wants you to say something specific, and we haven't figured out what that is yet. And that's okay. I mean, part of the challenge is having to kind of figure out as we go what they're trying to communicate. If it really is, he wants you to say these sort of non-functional things, we want to try and redirect it to something a little more appropriate. Maybe you can turn it into some sort of social game, so that he's understanding the back and forth, but we don't want to encourage him to to just say sounds that are not going to be able to be understood to people in his environment, because they're not going to respond to that positively. And
But I noticed like when he said those words, it's loud.
okay,
Like he say, sapoche, americano say, memorize that, okay. But then, when he eats, he's able to do his breath so soft, like you almost don't hear.
mm-hmm.
Very soft. I keep saying to him, well, it's okay, you can talk.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay.
And sometimes it gets quieter either when they're less confident and comfortable with the ability to say that. The prayer's kind of long, he may not really think he's got it down, or it may just not be something he's really motivated to do on his own. It doesn't probably have much of a function for him, aside from you would like him to do it, and then once he does it, he gets to eat or go to sleep or whenever it is that you're doing the prayer. But it probably doesn't have that same natural reinforcement as whatever this phrase is that he's saying. It seems like he got it from somewhere, and so he's thinking about whatever that is when he's saying it, and that makes him happy. And so to replace that may be challenging, but trying to figure out some other interactive back and forth that he may find as positive and reinforcing, and trying to ignore that kind of interaction, and maybe blocking that whole touching your face, trying to get you to say it, kind of showing him that if I don't understand you, I can't respond the way you want. If I can't understand you, then there will be more back and forth. You can have my attention, we're gonna laugh, we're gonna smile, those kinds of things. So he's in a good place where he wants to have a back and forth. He hasn't maybe yet figured out that it needs to be sort of on two people's terms, and that he needs to be communicating certain words and certain phrases so that he can get that going back and forth. And you have no idea where this phrase comes from?
No.
Because if we have more information about where it comes from, we can also sort of work with it. But did it come from a TV show or a game that he likes, or did he hear it somewhere? Is it something that somebody says? Because then we can kind of work with why he might like that and what other phrases might serve that purpose, or how to build that so it does make sense. I mean, maybe it is actual words that he's just not articulating very well, and we can teach him how to clarify that.
Yeah, because when he wants things, like usually tell him just by one word.
Mm-hmm.
But just one like for iPad, he tell me the complete sentence. He said,
Mm-hmm.
Mom, I want iPad.
Mm-hmm. Because he really, really, really wants the iPad.
Like, I want juice.
Mm-hmm.
Like, sometimes even the computer, you say computer, but for iPad,
Mm-hmm.
the whole thing.
But the key is, how do I respond to his communication attempts? And you are doing exactly the right thing in that now you don't respond if he only gives you one word. You respond if he gives you that full sentence. And sometimes you need to help him give you that full sentence, but you're teaching him that one word no longer gets him what he's looking for. And so that's the perfect way to expand on that. He has to say a sentence when he's requesting something. If he wants it bad enough, he'll say the sentence. If he doesn't want it badly enough, he may not say the sentence, and then, okay. And you kind of teach him that, okay, if you're not willing to put forth the effort, that's fine, but you need to find something else to do. We want him to value that communication as a really useful tool. And I think, like I said, I think you're on exactly the right track. Making him give you that full sentence, especially for those requests, because you know he can do it. You know that is something he's capable of. You know that he's not going to get frustrated because he can't make those words. He's capable, so everybody needs to require it. And they certainly require it at school as well. iPad is popular there too, so it's something he gets lots and lots of practice with. And so giving him practice with other things he's requesting is is the way to expand that.
I don't know if that goes there, but I want to tell something.
Sure.
That I would like to improve for something that I ask him. I'm like, do you want that? He says, yes, please. Or, no, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
But there's something that I ask him, he doesn't respond. And I said, come on, Robert. Yes or no? And he looked at me and said, yes or no. So he doesn't give me the answer.
Do you have, hi,
Hi.
come on in. Sign in.
You can see the computer.
Can you give me an example of something he won't respond yes or no to?
Like if you were reading a book,
Mm-hmm.
and they said, do you want to read another book? And no response. And I said, come on, Robert. Do you want to read another book? Yes or no? And he looked at me, yes or no? I said, no, Robert, let's pick one. And then he doesn't respond.
Sometimes that is indication that he just doesn't care. Either answer is sort of fine by him. If you say, you know, do you want more iPad? He's probably going to clearly say yes. And like you said, you've seen that happen. So it may be that it doesn't matter to him whether or not he reads another book. And so one of the things we could maybe teach him is, I don't care. Or you pick. You know, there's a variety of phrases that we might be able to.
I was thinking maybe for some stuff if he knows already, I'd say yes or no. For some he doesn't. So I was thinking about that.
There may be some things he doesn't quite understand that's important. He understands when it's something that he really, really likes or something that he really, really doesn't like, that he should say yes and no, and it either comes to him or goes away. But it may not be as clear if it's something that's kind of neutral. And so if there is any indication what his actual opinion is, then we want to prompt him to say it and follow through with that response. So if he really looks like he's done reading, then you can jump in and prompt him to say, no thanks, I'm all done, or...
Yeah, I was thinking, but I didn't do yes. I was thinking maybe show like, so he just
the visuals. Mm-hmm.
Yes, please, or no, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Because before he was saying just, and I said, no, I don't have pig here. I want to say nice. I want to say no, thank you. All the time, like, do you want me to shut the lights? No. I said, no, I don't want that. I said, if I ask it to you, you have to say no, thank you. Let's try one more time. Robert, do you want me to shut the light? No. And he said, no. Try one more time. So until he gets it, I had to say, no, thank you. And I was speaking to the teacher. She said he started saying now, no, thank you over there.
Excellent.
Said, Robert, maybe like, let's do something. Or he said, no, thank you. He said, no, that's not a request. You have to do that. I said, no, thank you.
Well, so he's starting to get what that means in certain contexts. So we want to keep practicing in those other situations. The trick is to figure out what he really wants or doesn't want, so you can prompt the correct answer. And some ways to tell is do one or the other and see how he responds. So, you know, if you're saying you need to say no thank you if you don't want me to turn off the lights and he won't do it appropriately, you turn off the lights. If he gets upset, you know, he really didn't want you to turn off the lights, turn them back on, let's try again. Like you said, until he's doing it the level you expect. You're perfect with the, you know, deciding this is the response I'm going to accept, and then not accepting anything less. And being consistent with that is key, because if sometimes no works, he's going to keep trying that first. If you keep practicing no thank you, then eventually he's not going to bother with the other one because it didn't work. And he's going to just go straight to no thank you. Does that make sense? You know, same thing with the sentence versus the one word. He's learning that in certain contexts, the one word is not going to work. And in some contexts, he maybe still is kind of trying it out, partly because he's not in as big of a hurry to get what he's looking for. But he knows the quickest way is to give you that full sentence right off the bat. So he's got it figured out. It's just a matter of practicing in different situations. With Robert and with lots of kids, we actually have to teach these skills in the different situations for them to kind of generalize and transfer over. Though he's starting to do that because clearly he brought this no thank you to school without specific training, but it may not kind of go across all.
Yeah, because I think with him, maybe sentence like a visual, he can see it. Maybe that's going to help you, because I don't know if you remember when I told you about the music in the car. So when I get in the car, he just said like music, and said, no, I wanted the whole sentence. Mom, I want music, please. So I wrote, and I was showing the sentence, come on, so I made him read. And then the same thing to shut it off, because he asked me to shut the music off when you are close to home, so he knows. Doesn't matter which way I go, he asked me to shut the music. And he'll say, I want music. I said, no, Bobby, you don't want music. You want me to shut it off. So I showed another sentence, and I don't read, I'm making him to read. But later was like I just showed the sentence, and then I don't show the sentence anymore, and he starts to get it now.
And again, that's a perfect example. I'm so glad you're here. These are perfect examples. So first, he figured out that I want music, got the music to turn on, and first he realized that music got music to turn on, and then Roseanne decided that what she was going to accept was the full sentence. And he kept trying, and so she gave him a visual, which is a great idea for many, many, many kids to help with that communication, and put the sentence on the back seat of the car and prompted him sometimes. And then once he got to be independent with it, she would not need to prompt him, and she would wait for him to give the sentence. And then he kind of overgeneralized and was saying, I want music, when he wanted it to turn off. And so she had to show him, I want music doesn't get it to turn off, it gets it to stay on. If you want it to turn off, you say, what was the exact sentence?
Mom, please turn off the music.
And she's pretty strict. She gives him long sentences. And in that case, if we started working on Mom, please turn off the music, and he was getting frustrated, we could back it up a little bit to, music off, please, or something shorter so he could be successful. Turns out he picked it up because he really, really, really wanted that music off at a certain time. And so it worked. And so now the expectation is he needs to say a full sentence to turn it on. He needs to say a full sentence to turn it off. And the visuals have helped him. Sometimes he still probably needs some additional reminders, but that's the expectation. He's probably not in the car with tons of other people, but if that were the case, we'd want to let them know too that this is the expectation, that he's going to want you to turn on the music. Don't turn it on until he says.
Yeah, but I noticed another thing is like, sometimes if he's with Stella, the babysitting, on a car, so he just asks for music, she put like, music, but if it is with me, if I put America like music, no, he could say, I want music. And I say, but that's music, love. No, it has to be Portuguese gospel.
So, I mean, maybe at this point, the appropriate thing to teach him is to specify the kind of music, because in different situations, he wants different things. So maybe now the next step for him is, I want Portuguese gospel, or I want Portuguese, or, if we have to,
Yeah, I was thinking now when he starts to get him, because before, when I put it like Portuguese music, he just did like that. And I said, Robert, that's your mom. Mama's first language. So I speak Portuguese. But he was doing that. And now I noticed, like, in December, we went to my sister for Christmas. And he was fine. Like, he was not doing that. Like, everybody would speak Portuguese.
Well, now he associates it with you, and so it's reinforcing.
Like, there are two sounds. Maybe now, I don't know if that's I'm just guessing that he's making a difference.
I was going to ask related to this, if once the child has mastered the sentence, would
Mm-hmm.
you play around with, can we hear some music, or can
Yep.
we turn on the music?
Exactly. So there are sort of two next steps depending on the situation. One being add more specific words. Like in this case, it sounds like maybe a good step would be to specify the kind of music he wants, because that's coming up naturally in his environment. The other step would be to teach him to vary the phrase, to say, he can say, I want music, please. He can say, can I have music? And to start teaching him to expand on that, because we want it to sound natural and more comfortable. We want him to have multiple tools in his toolbox to be able to try these different kinds of phrases. And one of the things that often ABA is accused of is making children sound like robots because we have to start with a simple phrase and we have to try and teach them the same way initially with kiddos who have trouble with language so that it's simple for them. But as soon as they can handle that, we want to be teaching them other phrases. We also want to be teaching them in a more natural tone of voice, which I think sometimes we forget to do. So we want them to be able to sound like everybody else and to be able to experience the positive reinforcement with sounding like everybody else. You get a little bit of a different reaction if it sounds kind of repetitive and robotic than you do, especially from like other kids.
That's why I feel it's Robert, because he goes, hey kids, what's your name? My name is Robert Spirit Jr. I feel like I try different things. Say, hey boy, what's your name? My name is Robert Spirit Jr. So I feel like I don't feel like natural.
So, but now he's got a lot of phrases like that one that he is very, very comfortable with. So now is the time that you can try and teach him something else. And then what you do with that is, for a little while, you don't accept the old response. You accept the new response, whatever it is, my name's Robert, what's yours? Or, whatever you want to change it to, and you begin to prompt him through that. Using a visual with him is particularly helpful, and with many kids to have a different phrase, and for initially you only accept that phrase, and then once he's got that, then you can kind of go back and forth, and there are ways to teach him, I'm just not going to respond until you use something different. So you teach him a few different phrases, and then it's like, well, this time you said this, so the next time I'm not going to respond unless it's something different. It can be anything different, but it has to be something different. That's sort of like the next level. But for him, I think there's two things. Like with the music, for sure, let's figure out how to teach him the specific kind of music he wants so the people in the cars can respond appropriately. So he doesn't have to get upset or keep repeating himself until they figure out what kind of music he wants. I'm sure his babysitter has it figured out now, but.
Because if you go in my car, there's a lot of sentences in there, put in there. Because I'm a driver, I spend a lot of time listening in the car, so I'm driving. Robert, say that word, Robert, say that word.
The other thing with communication that I want to bring up, just thinking about these sentence strips in the car, is that it's an all-day, everyday thing, and there are learning opportunities all the time, and we want to keep taking advantage of them and teaching that communication is valuable all of the time, like in the car. It's perfect opportunity to practice because this is something that is important to him. So we want to make sure we're finding those opportunities everywhere, like you're doing. You're so the perfect parent.
Robert, I have to work with a lot of sentences with him because come to me, he already say what he wants. Like he wanted me to sing to him, he come to me and say, thank you for being a friend. And I said, no, you want me to sing for you. I say, Mom, please sing, thank you for being a friend. Or,
And so,
where's my hairbrush? He come to me and just say brush. So I know he wants to sing, where is my hairbrush?
Yep. And so the thing to keep in mind is that you've figured out what brush means. You've figured out what thank you for being a friend. That's so cute
Yeah.
that he wants to sing that thank you for being a friend means. But if he asks somebody else, they're not necessarily going to give him what he wants. And then he may have to go back to crying, whining, getting upset because it didn't work. So we want to teach him, just like you're doing, more specific phrases so that other people can also understand him and know what he's looking for. So just like you're saying, I want to sing this phrase, or whatever the case may be, to give him enough words that he could transfer that to other people. And with him, it's just going to be a matter of more of those sentences. And with lots of our kids, it's a matter of teaching lots of different scripts, essentially, and showing him different places to use them. And once he learns that script in one setting, then we teach him to use it in different settings, and we teach him other ways to say the same thing. So he kind of slowly builds his arsenal, so then he has different ways to say some of the same things, and he has enough words to specifically tell somebody who's not necessarily as familiar with him what he wants, so that his communication is always successful. We want him to be able to get to a point where his communication is always successful and doesn't fail him, because when that happens, he doesn't need to, resort back to the lesser forms of communication, and he doesn't need to get back to crying, whining, getting upset, because he's got the tools. I'm going to go quickly through this because I think we've really talked about all of this. So the first step really is to figure out where he's at now. The next step is to think of, sort of the big goal, which in Robert's case is, sort of longer sentences, more varied communication, more specific communication, and then thinking about the small steps. And in his case, in the car, the small step would be, the type of music, and in some of the other situations might be giving him a different type of sentence to say instead of, my name is Robert, giving him a different way to say that. So those are the small steps to be working on. We don't want to hit him with too many small steps. We don't want to hit him with too many extra words because we don't want him to get frustrated. We want him to be successful with it. We want it to be easy to succeed at first so that he's more likely to do it again in the future.
I was thinking like to practice him just like every time to say hi, so he's supposed to say hi. I was thinking to say hi mom, because I noticed like if I go someplace and people say hi and say, come on Rob, you can respond that, and he look and say hi mom. And I said no, this is not your mom, I am your mom, just say hi. So because I practice with him, say hi mom, and now if he sees anybody say hi and I ask him to respond, say hi mom.
So one step might be to practice some of that with other familiar people that he knows and sees a lot. So he starts to know that the response for you is hi mom. The response for his babysitter is, what's her name?
Sarah.
Hi Tara. The response for, whoever else is in his life frequently, to start practicing with them. And so he starts to learn those different responses. Like we talked about with my name is Robert. If he only has learned one response, he's going to plug that in everywhere. So we need to start teaching him other responses. But for him, I think we need to give him the context that makes sense. So we need to give him that other familiar person who also has a name, and so he can start to learn that there is a different response. And then we maybe get to if you don't know the person, the response is just hi, or hi, what's your name? But at first we can start teaching him that each person gets a different response. That's probably the next step for him. And there are a few people specifically that he sees a lot. I'm sure that they could be working on that at school as well. They know that they have worked on that at school because he used to get Laura and Kate mixed up. And for a while, everybody was hi Laura, then it was everybody was hi Kate, and so they've started working on Laura goes with Laura, Kate goes with Kate, and starting to help him to differentiate when to use each of those responses. And again, we start there, we slowly take steps, and we keep reinforcing all of the steps up to where we want to get, and we stop reinforcing the stuff that's too easy, so it doesn't get the response anymore. These are just examples, but we just used Robert as an example, so we don't need to go through these. So that's pretty much what I've got. So do you have a sense of the couple of things to try at home for the next steps for him?
Yeah.
And again, little steps, don't take on.
I wanna like so bad, like just like simple thing like for conversation, because I remember we went to the park. It was a little girl in there, and she liked him. So she said hi, and he didn't respond. Of course, he ignored her. And she looked at me. Why he doesn't talk? He's so big. So that hurts me. Like when I do that, he's so big. And he doesn't talk.
So I mean, if that's something that's important to you, then maybe that's one of the things we work on. You know, saying hi in responding to other kids, or saying hi, how are you, if you want to add another phrase. But pick a couple of these pieces and build on them. Don't try and take on too much, because then he's going to have a lot of times where his communication is not getting him what he wants, and it's really hard, and he's going to get frustrated, and he's going to do that, and he's going to not want to try to communicate. We want it to always be a positive experience. So on that note, I'm going to let Sherry and the BMC crowd.
These programs are great. I know that you know about them, so and maybe something for you to know about if you wanted to attend. In the city, there are activities for parents and kids and lots of programming going on in different neighborhoods. So, and in fact, that's all detailed on the backside, which groups are going on in which neighborhoods and when, so, and who to contact.
Do they specify like age group activities, like stuff for younger kids, stuff for older kids?
I think it depends what sort of crops up. Like they're doing CHAMPS, which is like a physical, it's like a activity-based social skills intervention, and this is not specific to age, so I don't know. The groups, some of them are for teens, and others are for kind of all ages.
That's what I'd like to know, like if it's gonna be like Rob is gonna be good to participate, but
Yeah.
he just with me on the weekend he's go to his dad.
So, how old is he?
14.
Oh, okay, so he is a
How
young.
old are you? Yeah, he confused that. Sometimes you ask him, how are you? He says 14. So no, Robertson, we talk about 8. And then he says 14.
Yeah.
It's good because he was 10 years for 3 years.
So he's caught
11,
on.
He couldn't say 11 was 10, 12, 10, 13. He said 13, now 14. He
Well,
said
that's
14.
great. Where do you live?
I live in Chestnut Hill,
Oh, Chestnut Hill. Okay.
next to the Parkway.
Yeah. Okay, so you can sort of get onto the highway pretty easily from there. There's a group in Cambridge for young adults with autism that's on Friday nights, which is listed here.
Yeah. But do you know what time?
That is, I don't know, but if you call them and they could, either Josh or the other contact person at the other contact number could tell you.
Because there's one thing that I don't want to take away from him. Roberts like to go to church.
To church.
So we
yeah.
go to a church on Friday night, and they have one class in there that accepts him. Because
Yeah.
after being out of church, there was no placement for
Yeah.
Roberts. There one, they accept Roberts staying there, and they do activities with Roberts.
That's
And
great.
if I do like, let's go to church in there.
That's
He
great.
goes.
I mean, that sounds like a really nice outlet for him. It is his group, it's his friends, it's his community now, so I wouldn't take him away from that. I think that sounds lovely. But I think you should call Josh and talk to him and see if there's anything happening that might be a good fit for Robert. Depending on, if you're looking to have him meet other kids or.
Yeah, that's about
Yeah.
like, because like birthday stuff like that, it's just me and my friends. Because he's a
Yeah.
nice friend.
Yeah, so And a lot of times we start small with that too. So, you know, just finding if there's a group, you know, maybe seeing if there's a connection between him and, you know, any one other peer, and then, you know, working with them to kind of build a friendship, or working with him to call or have that, you know, have a meetup that you sort of supervise or, you know, help him with. So I would talk to Josh and see, because I don't know. I know of a group in Watertown
Okay.
that could potentially work, but I would talk to Josh about what the different groups are and see what might be a good fit. In terms of other supports, though, is there anything that you're looking for?
I'd say I feel like my money go like a water, because I'm alone here, so I have to pay everything, pay babysitting there. I try to get help all the time that my answer was like, no, I want to need someone like come to my home so I can go to grocery, or all the time like I gotta no. And they look at my paycheck and say, oh, you make a lot of money.
Yeah, that right. So you've applied for SSI
I applied.
and got denied.
So that is,
yeah.
because I said, oh, I don't know I make a lot of money.
Right, you don't,
Yeah.
except that in terms of them, a lot of people don't meet that criteria. It's unfortunately very, very low. So
Even I said, but I don't want like money when I like.
some
There's
time.
like sometimes like someone just can come to my home, stay like
Yeah.
1 hour, 1 hour and a half, just so I can go grocery, because
Yeah.
it's hard for me to go groceries, Robert.
What's
Because
his?
one hand I have to hold him, and another one I have to get stuff. So
Yeah.
I try once, like 2 months ago, just to leave
Yeah.
him. Robert, you have to stay here next to mom, and then just turn to grab him and thought, where's Robert?
What are
So
his
I just
adaptive
run.
skills like in terms of home care? How independent is he with dressing and bathing and eating and
He can dress
cleaning?
himself,
and,
but
uh-huh.
I have to pick the clothes, because otherwise, like, he doesn't match. He can get like one piece of his pajama, and
Uh-huh.
it
Yeah.
doesn't match his clothes. So
Uh-huh.
if I see his clothes, like
Uh-huh.
he dress up himself. He know how to button, he know how to
Yeah.
zip it up,
Okay.
and he know how to change himself. So right now we are in a process to practice how to take a shower.
Yep.
And that was a big step for him, because before was just bath, but he started to growing, and the bath started to get small. And
Right.
I said, Robert, so you need to take a shower. So I would take a shower and show him how to do it. So I tried to see him, but he cried like if I was spanking him.
Yeah.
So he was so afraid. And then one day I was driving to the field road, so I saw a public swim pool, like with springs. And I said, oh, I'm going to stop in there. So another day I took him over there, and then I stayed there on the spring. Come on. So he went in there. And he was afraid, and he did. And he did, and he liked it. So he stayed in there. I said, today, no more bath. So he came home and said, Robert, you're going to take a shower. No more bath for you.
Good
And
for
that's
you.
why the day that he was 3 days ago.
You're
He
really
took a shower. Because he's
Yeah.
growing.
Yeah.
You know now his size.
Oh, yeah.
So he's growing. And I said, have to take a shower now.
Yep.
Big boy, come on, Robert.
And we had talked about starting to teach him the like
Yeah.
routine of washing and things like
Yeah.
that. He's not doing that yet.
No, I have to stay in there, because otherwise he just do like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I said, no, Robert. 1, 2,
Yeah.
3, 4, 5. Come on. Or now he skip like 1, 2, 3, 5. I said, no, Robert. Come on. 1, 2, 3,
Right.
4, 5.
Right.
But if I'm in there,
Do that with all kids.
if I'm in there, it's like he does, but if I'm not, like one day I was waiting, and I said, come on, Rob, wash your head, but I wasn't to look. So he just put his head under the shower, but he didn't put shampoo and anything. Robert, come on.
Right.
So you're gonna stink. So nobody gonna be close to you. But he like if I say, let's go to take a shower, he goes.
He goes,
He likes to go.
It's great.
The only problem is he has no sense about how to say shame, so he can take his clothes and leave it on and walk naked. No rubbish, nobody can see your people. Come on, people now have to stand for peanuts, right? They have
He's
to
a
say
big
the
boy.
right name. Okay, nobody can see your peanuts. Come on, Rob.
Right.
It's private.
Right.
You have to go in a bathroom.
Right. Nope.
But if I don't observe that, he can like just take his clothes in the living room
Yep.
and then go naked. So no. So I know that he has no sense like he
Right.
can come in here and say, well, take care of your clothes. He take out.
Right. And we find that with a lot of
Yeah.
individuals with autism is they don't have that concept for what's private and what's public, and they need to be taught that too, as you are
Yeah,
trying to
because
start
now,
teaching
like,
him.
Before he was a little, but now he's a man.
Yeah. Oh,
And
no.
so no Robert.
Right.
No.
Right, no, and touching, and in terms of getting you some extra help in the home, I'm wondering if he has mass health, sometimes you can get a PCA. So, yeah, if he kind of met criteria, that's why I was asking about his adaptive
I'm
skills.
gonna try again, mass health, because I tried I think 5 years ago,
Uh-huh.
6 years ago. I had to pay like 500, and I said, no way, why am I going to get that
For a
money?
PCA?
No, to get mass health.
Oh, you don't have mass health?
No.
Huh. So it was Common Health, the supplementary you were applying for?
I have Harvard,
Uh-huh.
Harvard's program. But I tried, someone told me I tried, and I have to pay a lot of money, and I said,
Yeah.
I can't afford that.
There is premium assistance for that. I didn't bring that information, but I can send that to you. There's a way to get some financial support, and families can pretty easily qualify for it. So to get this mass health program, the Common Health, which is when you have a primary health insurance like you do, but you want extra insurance, and for this benefit it would be worth it for the PCA that we're thinking, you can get this additional insurance.
What's that PCA stand for?
So personal care attendant.
Oh.
And what that means is somebody to come to the home to help with activities of daily living. So you have to meet criteria where he would need help in at least 3 areas of home life. So this would be a case where you would want to sort of share all the ways that he needs help still. You don't want to oversell his abilities, but to say, all the things that he would need help with within the home. The more that he needs help, the more likely they are to feel he'd qualify for those services. But it's only a program through Mass Health, so only if you have Mass Health can you be eligible for that.
Okay.
But
Yeah, because through my insurance, I try ABA. They don't pay.
it's, yeah,
They pay speech,
right,
they pay OT, but not ABA.
yeah.
And I said to them, I thought that was like a law, something like that.
Well, yeah, it
So
is,
no.
but unfortunately, only like 40% of people qualify because it's really about the type of insurance that you have, and it depends on sort of complicated factors about whether it's self-funded or not. And so a lot of people don't end up qualifying who have very good insurance.
Yeah, because I noticed like who goes to my home, it is Jack from school, right? So Jack goes to my home. I noticed one thing. Robert does stop listening to him. But with me, when I ask, no, like I have to keep you repeat, come on, come on. But with Jack, he just goes
Yeah.
and he does. And I said, what's wrong in that? I don't know. So I was like, Robert's tall, right? Jack is taller than Robert. I even asked him, I said, Jack, do you mind telling how tall you are? So he said, I'm 6.4. So he's tall. He's taller than Robert. But I noticed he said something to Robert, Robert does.
Right.
And me, no. Come on, Robert, put your own shoes. Keep it.
It's also
Robert,
a lot
your
easier with
shoes.
somebody who doesn't have a long history with Robert to establish that sort of teacher role, because that's all Robert knows of him is he gives instructions, I follow them, this thing happens. With you, there's a long, complicated history, and your mom, and you love him, and he knows that. He knows sort of how to push your buttons. He knows how to, get you to give in. He has learned a lot in recent years that when you ask him to do something, he has to do it. But he has to sort of learn all of that, because when he was a baby, he gets what he wants, right? That's what happens with babies. He cries and good things happen because that's what happens with babies. And then he has to kind of constantly be relearning the boundaries with you, because as he gets older, the expectations and the boundaries change. But with somebody who comes in from outside, you know, in that sort of teacher school role, they can establish that relationship right off the bat, and that's all he knows, and so it's easy for Robert to understand. It doesn't change, it's always kind of the same thing, and it's only for this period of time.
And thinking, I mean, my guess is that they're, you know, Jack, and they're able to be very neutral about whatever the instruction is and making sure he follows through. It's not normal. I mean, it's not common to be so neutral as a parent. It's just, it's much easier
Just
to,
more emotion in there.
yeah.
You can't help it.
So if he's screaming over something that's not working for him, you know, a natural maternal impulse is to care about that and to care about the fact that he's upset and to, whether you know it or not, show it. And so, but,
Body language piece.
yeah, but, you know, somebody who's not his mom, who's his teacher, who's his therapist, their job is to be neutral. They know, I mean, that's just part of it. So, and that often gets a better response because, you know, it's very solution driven. So, oh, I'm not going to talk to you until you say that in a quiet way, or you use your words, or whatever it is, they can turn that off. But you know, parents don't have a switch that's that easy. It can work. I mean, you clearly have ways of being able to do it. You know, you can work on it, but it's, you know, don't.
You have to overcome a lot
Yeah.
more factors.
Yeah. So it's you know, I think it's very challenging.
Yeah, I try to work with him like if I was his teacher. So
You
doesn't
just-
get
Yeah.
involved, but it's too hard.
You try
Yeah.
and separate the
I
emotions,
have
and
to
it's,
say,
it's a good thing to
I
try.
found myself crying in the bathroom later.
But it's good that you aren't, because you are his mom and he needs his mom to love him and he needs his mom to care about him. So, you know, you're never going to be in that
Totally.
category, and you shouldn't be. He should know, you know, so where it sort of is coming up and not helping him to be as successful, you know, those are the times to you know, kind of examine how to learn from the ways that
Yeah,
others
but
do
I
it.
keep say like, no, he can do it, because everybody was telling me, like when he was telling me, oh, he never will talk, I said,
Look at him
no,
now.
Yeah.
he will talk. I always say that. So when he was elementary, he said, Robinson won't talk. And they said, no, he will talk.
Absolutely, and it's great to keep pushing him and to keep expanding on that communication, the key being one step at a time, because we don't want him to get frustrated and kind of backslide. So we want to, there are lots of things he can do, and he's going to keep progressing, but we don't want to try and make too big a leap, because then he's going to not find communication to be as a positive thing.
Yeah.
That's the take-home message. Keep doing what you're doing. You're doing an amazing job, but remember to take baby steps so that it stays
Yeah,
positive.
I think my frustration was try to do everything at the same time.
Uh-huh.
And then Katie said to me, no, pick one thing and work on that thing.
Right.
Until
good
you get,
advice.
and then go to another one. But I feel like so many stuff.
I know.
You've got plenty of time. You get to have him
And now,
for the
like,
whole
I'm
rest of
so
your life.
worried about his future, what's gonna happen with Robert.
Yeah.
One
Now
day at
he's
a time.
15.
Yeah.
One day at a time.
Yeah. Kafari's come.
And I'm so glad that you could come and I could use you as this awesome example. Thank you very much.